Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I am Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I am joined on this episode by Tom Kuipers, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Advertising at Ollie's Bargain Outlet. And Tom and I are here at the CRMC conference in Chicago, and we're going to talk to Tom a little bit about his role at Ollie's, as well as a little bit about kind of marketing strategy at the retail organization. So thanks for joining me, Tom.
Happy to be here.
So as I noted, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Advertising, can you tell us a little bit about your kind of professional background and your current role at Ollie's?
Sure. I've been in retail for a long time. I started many moons ago at JCPenney's and then worked my way up through the ranks. Was a store manager with Samsonite and turned into a district manager, a merchandise manager, and then ultimately I started a marketing team at Samsonite Retail. Went on to Joann stores and then Bed Bath & Beyond for 17 years, where I had a variety of roles. And now I'm at Ollie's Bargain Outlet, and I've been with the company for about 2.5 years.
That's great. So obviously we're talking to somebody well-versed in the retail space. Tell us a little bit about Ollie's Bargain Outlet. For those, I think most are in the audience, I'm sure, are familiar with it, but for those that may not be, tell us a little bit about the business.
Sure. So the company is actually celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. So we've been in business since 1982. We started in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the company basically has 448 stores as of today. We opened our first store actually in the Chicagoland area yesterday, so that's exciting. And we're continuing to grow. We're essentially from Vermont down to Florida and then across to Texas. So we're in 28 states and continuing to grow. We're opening about 50 stores a year, and we have plans to get to about 1,050 across the country. We are the largest retailer of closeout merchandise in the country. So we get our merchandise from other retailers, manufacturers, wholesalers, wherever it may be. We relieve that inventory from their situation, and then we sell it to our customers at a pretty deep discount. We typically run up to 70% off what we call the fancy store prices, which would be regular retail.
Yeah. Is there a digital component or is it brick and mortar only?
Yeah, we're a brick and mortar retailer.
Yeah.
It's a great point. So we have to be highly differentiated
Yeah.
and really be able to tell that value story to our consumers.
So that's actually probably a good segue into the next question in terms of the kind of your role in the marketing team, telling that story to differentiate yourself. So talk about how Ollie's marketing strategy has evolved. You mentioned the business is growing. You know, it's growing and rather quickly. Tell us what that means for you and the marketing team.
Sure. As I mentioned, I started it with the company about 2.5 years ago and walked in December of 2019 with essentially a marketing program that was very legacy, newspaper driven primarily. I think we all know what's happening in the newspaper industry with the reduction in circulation. So we started on a path of really trying to understand what additional channels we should add. Took a look at the team, made sure that we had good test and learn measurements in place, and started to find a way to optimize our print communication and begin to pull dollars out, invest in digital, and then test and learn within the digital environment so we understood where we were actually seeing incremental sales. As you can imagine, in December of 19, I didn't know that 4 months later, the pandemic was going to hit, caused clearly a lot of disruption to the business. Actually, in our case, in a very positive way. We were able to be open during the entire pandemic. So we had a record year in 2020. 2021 was the polar opposite of that. Yep. You know, when you're up against 40% comps, it's very difficult to beat that. So lots of ups and downs, but we did stick to our plan in terms of testing the different channels, optimizing print. We lowered our print budget significantly while at the same time maintaining sales from that channel. And then building out digital channels such as Facebook and Instagram. We tested Snapchat, Pinterest, YouTube, Google, all the usual suspects to begin to be able to tell the story more effectively through those channels.
Yeah, and it's interesting, while you're not selling digitally, you're marketing to the customer in many different digital channels. So is that both existing customers and also kind of a prospecting acquisition
that's
play
a great
as well?
So clearly as we're opening new stores, we're opening new markets.
Yeah.
We've got probably a third of our chain that is represented by markets that we've only been in for 3 years or less. So we have brand awareness challenges within those markets. So we are using digital to build brand awareness. We are looking at lookalikes of our customer base. So we happen to be very fortunate that we have a pretty intensive loyalty program. About 80% of our sales are done through that loyalty program. So it's very significant. 12.9 million members. So lots and lots of customer data that we can use to then model out as we enter new markets, understand what customers look like our Ollie's Army customers, and then go after them and bring them in and begin to have them experience what Ollie's is about. At the same time, we're also looking at talking to our Ollie's Army customers through digital channels. So while we're prospecting, we're also talking to the existing base.
Yeah, keeping that conversation going and getting that retention as well. I want to talk a little bit about the data and customer research, but first I want to ask a little bit about your role as marketing and how you and your team is collaborating with others in the organization to perform, to the best of your abilities. Tell us a little bit about kind of the internal structure and how you work with some of the other departments at Ollie's.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that's one that we really don't talk enough about. And I find that probably 50% of my job is bringing the organization along in the process. What we're talking about is a pretty radical shift in our marketing mix from years past, right? So we're very used to a very stable marketing program where everything's done exactly the same way year over year. And we started to introduce a lot of shifts in what we were doing based on building out these new channels. Merchants that are used to turning in, for X number of ads per year, all of a sudden we're coming to them weekly for additional product. The technology team has new lifts, right? They've got to feed data back and forth, and we have to share files with our vendors, and we have to really be smart about what we're doing. So every single function that we've done business with, I spend a lot of time telegraphing, here's what we're planning on doing, here's why we're doing it, here's what the vision is, making sure I'm on their priority list, and then understanding what challenges we're now creating. So it's very easy to say that we're going to launch a digital ad on Facebook, for example, or bring our flyer to life through the Facebook environment, but all of a sudden, the print isn't showing up properly, and there's lots of little things that you have to do. So that discussion with my peers at the leadership level is critical to make sure that everybody is aware and that we're having a quick feedback loop and really discussing where we're seeing wins, where we're seeing losses, making sure everybody's on the same page. Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into the customer research and what you're doing in terms of, you talked about working with your technology team for this data kind of management, how that factors into marketing strategy and planning, and maybe is there an example of something that's worked really well, maybe something that you tried that didn't really work, or interested if you have a kind of a real world example there.
Yeah. So I would say we're underdeveloped on the customer research side, and we are working very hard to become better developed on the data side. So we have lots and lots of data, as I mentioned. Access to that data was a challenge. So the last several years we've spent really working with technology to build out a Snowflake data center where we could actually get into that data, be able to access it quickly, and then use that data to drive our decisions. So that's not necessarily specific research, but it is using the data to drive our actions. Good examples are when we should show prospects certain categories, what prospects react to the most, or what Ollie's Army react to the most. We've also spent really the last 2 years building out what we're going to call the civilian database. So while 80% of my sales are done through Ollie's Army, that means 20% are done by somebody else, somebody that I can't identify. I have no idea who they are.
Anonymous to you
Right. So one of the key things that we wanted to try to do this past year in 2021 actually was work with technology to build out this civilian database, or how do we identify that 20%? There's a lot of cash transactions, that's fine, we're not going to be able to identify, but we did build in the ability to read the mag stripe on the credit card so that we can then go out and reverse append, do a geo append essentially in the areas of the stores, understand if we can identify certain customers, bring them back into the data set, see if they match our Ollie's Army, or if not, create a new record. So that process really has taken about a year and just started getting data flowing into it probably 3 or 4 months ago. So starting to really be able to utilize that data is the next step.
Yeah, with I think you said around 12 million customers in the Ollie's Army loyalty program, you have that really tremendously rich source of data, but that other 20% you're trying to identify. Maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing at the store level to try to get to know those customers, maybe get them enrolled in the
Sure.
loyalty program.
Yeah, and it's not just the store level, right? At the store level, we do have a program where we're trying to, anybody who doesn't have an Ollie's Army membership, at the cash wrap, the store associates are incented to talk about the program. They understand the value the program brings to the stores, and we do contests on a regular basis to keep them more engaged. But as we're building the civilian database, we're also now able to talk to those folks through digital, right, or through print, so that we can invite them into Ollie's Army and actually give them a more direct marketing approach than just what's happening at the store side.
How's that impact kind of when you look at your team and across the organization, kind of the talent that you're acquiring and attracting? Because this is really a different skill set than something maybe you were doing 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
And that was kind of fundamental to the transformation that we put in place. So I was very fortunate to walk in and have a wonderful team of people who really understood Ollie's marketing program, great design people, the whole 9 yards. But we did have a gap in digital talent.
Right.
We had a gap in the kind of the analytics side. And I'll say that I was able to bring in somebody from my past life who understood the data, really was able to kind of build out CRM analytics and insights. So we have been spending a lot of time building that out, and at the same time starting to leverage the digital talent that we could acquire through agencies. So we kind of went through a leverage process, right, to say, hey, here's an agency that has the digital talent that we need. Now we need to start to bring that knowledge into the teams at Ollie's. So we just recently hired somebody on the digital side on staff to start to really manage that. But we have been working with 2 different digital agencies on different programs to kind of execute things.
Right, yeah. And then my final question for you, Tom, is looking ahead, what are some of the opportunities? You've talked a little bit about some of the work that you're doing to prepare yourself for the future, but some of the opportunities or trends that you believe Ollie's can really capitalize on here in the second half of 2022.
Sure. Yeah, Ollie's is sitting in a very unique position with many circumstances caused by supply chains. A lot of inventory is coming in. Target recently announced that they have way too much inventory for their stores. That actually plays into our model beautifully, right? We relieve companies of their excess inventory and we sell it to customers at a discount. We are seeing the supply chain issues really providing a lot of value to our consumers over the next several months. Our buyers are, working with pretty much anybody you can name, any brand you can name today, and acquiring great product that we can push through the chain. At the same time, the consumer's feeling the pinch of inflation, right? So our pricing being lower in the market than pretty much anybody else, we do believe it's a great opportunity to expose our business to new customers who wouldn't normally shop in Ollie's, but maybe because of the situation that they're in, they're going to shop at Ollie's. Plus the customers that know and love us already are continuing to come in. So we're feeling pretty good about the next several months in terms of how we're set up for that. At the same time, all of this data that we're bringing in from the civilian database, as well as the talent that we brought in, is all starting to gel together, which is super exciting for me to kind of see come to fruition after several years. And I'm excited about how we're going to be able to employ that resource going forward to really tell the Ollie story better.
Yeah, and you're in a unique position in terms of inventory, which you've outlined well. 2, the kind of brick and mortar growth too that you've talked about, moving into new markets where you don't have potentially a foothold yet. That's something that you're excited about as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, the reality is we don't have an e-commerce business, so we have to be able to really show the customer the value, because I've got to get her into her car to a store, versus going online and buying something online. So my value proposition has to be very sharp. It has to be very compelling. And it has to be highly differentiated. And I think we're doing that. Now we have to tell the story.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank Tom Kuipers, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Advertising at Ollie's Bargain Outlet, for joining us on this episode of Total Retail Talks here at CRMC. Thank you, Tom.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.